This is a general reading for entertainment purposes only. Watching my content does not constitute an advisory relationship such as therapy or legal counsel. I am not a certified medical or therapeutic professional, and my readings do not constitute professional advice. My readings are for confirmation of what you already intuitively know for yourself, not to get answers from me. General readings like this are like forecasting the weather for the entire planet. I can say that it is summer in the northern hemisphere, but summer looks very different from region to region. So please use your best judgment, take what resonates and leave the rest. And now let's get back to the video. Thank you. Hi, welcome back to my channel. This is Bee. I just wanted to take a quick minute to look at the new moon that's coming up and the cycle that is coming out of it. It's kind of big, and a lot of you might be feeling restless right now, so that's why I really felt that I wanted to do this. We are starting out with a new moon. It should be this Wednesday, the 23rd, I think, and we're going to be having a pretty huge pile up here in Anuradha, the nakshatra, which is in Scorpio. So yeah, we have the Sun, Mercury, Venus, and Moon. Technically, whenever we have a new moon, the moon is combust. But Venus and Mercury are also combust with the Sun right now. And then we have Mars out in Taurus. Mars is currently retrograding, and Mars and Venus are in mutual exchange right now. Mars rules Scorpio and Venus rules Taurus. And so Mars is in Taurus, Venus is in Scorpio. This puts them in mutual exchange, which is called a Parivartan Yoga. This strengthens both Venus and Mars. Normally they would be fallen in these signs, but during this yoga, while Mars is in Taurus and Venus is in Scorpio, they will be acting with the same strength and dignity as if they are in their own signs. So with that being said, we have a few other things going on. This new moon starts in Anuradha, and it's going to climax. The full moon will occur in Rohini in a few weeks from now. And we have Jupiter transiting Pisces. Jupiter is still retrograde as of right now, but he's starting to go direct really soon. So he's slowing down, he's becoming more powerful. And then we have Saturn in Capricorn, who just recently went direct and is also quite powerful. So Jupiter is actually aspecting Scorpio from Pisces, and Saturn is aspecting Jupiter from Capricorn. So we have a lot of aspecting going on. Saturn is also aspecting Ketu in Libra right now. We discussed in previous videos how this Ketu and Rahu cycle, Ketu is in Libra, Rahu is in Aries. This is bringing a lot of attention to our internal struggles with how we show up in relationships, where we sacrifice our desires and goals in service of a connection and wanting to kind of just maintain the peace and harmony. Ketu in Libra is kind of creating this like withdrawal from relationships, and Rahu really wants to focus on what it is that we want and what our desires are and what are we getting out of our relationship. So it's kind of like a really, this year so far is going to be really about like taking stock of our relationships. That might look like some people cutting out people from their life, but I think for a lot of people, well, oftentimes with these cycles, people who need to exit your life will exit one way or another, and the people who are meant to stay, you renegotiate. Like, just because you encounter friction or struggles with someone, in a relationship during this time doesn't mean that you're supposed to break up with them or separate from them. It could just be highlighting areas where you need to renegotiate your relationship contract with this person. That's what the 7th house in Libra is all about. It's about contracts that we have with others. That's why this is considered the marriage house, because marriage is a contract that you engage with in another person. And when you have a contract, there's agreements between you. That's why it's also the house of business relationships and partnerships. So it's not just any relationship, like friends and people that we kind of just give freely to tend to be more the domain of like the 11th house and the 3rd house. These are like our brethren. The 3rd house especially is like your brothers or siblings, and you kind of playfully compete with them, but you don't necessarily have the same type of expectations of them as you would for someone that you have engaged in a partnership with in the 7th house. Meanwhile, the 11th house specifically is like your important, influential friends, the people you network with in order to make gains from business, but you're not necessarily entering a partnership with them. So just a little astrological education there. So with Venus and Mercury combust the sun right now, things are getting really heated up, especially this aspect from Mars. So Mars naturally rules Scorpio, and while in this Parivartan Yoga, Mars is pretty strong in Taurus. Mars is really about your desires. Mars rules Aries, as we were talking about with this Rahu and Aries. Mars is going to really bring your attention to the things that you might be feeling resentful about, or you feel like you're sacrificing yourself too much. Mars is really all about your own self-interest and preserving your conquests and power, your personal power and your ambitions. And Mars can be quite selfish, and it's not wrong to be selfish, but you do have to moderate the way that it shows up in these relationships. So Mars is kind of getting juiced up from this exchange, and he's aspecting the sun in Scorpio. Mars, Sun, and Jupiter all are part of the same planetary camp, so they're friends with each other, and when Sun receives the aspect from Mars, he gets kind of like puffed up, and this can, and with the and with the additional aspect from Jupiter, the sun can be kind of really gassed up right now. So that can lead to ego being inflated and really kind of fixating on, how you're being slighted by people. And with Venus in Scorpio, Scorpio really is about going very deep. It's a deeply devotional sign, and it's a water sign, and it's in Scorpio where we go to the depths of ourselves, and often we can encounter uncomfortable and negative emotions and experiences. We feel very vulnerable in Scorpio because we have gone so deep into ourselves there. And Venus is really feeling, the reason Venus tends to struggle in Scorpio is that it can be challenging for relationships to be that deeply vulnerable with another person. And when you're feeling so vulnerable, you have a raw nerve going on, and the sun is really agitating that. With the sun's rays, the combustion, well, think about what a combustion is. That's like an explosion, and the sun is purifying Venus and Mercury with this combustion, and it's kind of like burning off the impurities. And if you think about purging, it doesn't feel good to purge. If you're, maybe you're sick and you end up vomiting or something like that, that's a kind of purging. A lot of people There's spiritual practices around purging, and the experience itself is always uncomfortable because you're encountering the toxins that need to be released, and they have to move through you. You have to experience them fully to really expel it from your body. And that's kind of what the sun does when we see combustion, is that the impurities are having light cast on them, and we have to burn it off and really purge it from ourselves. And so Venus is feeling all these vulnerabilities here in Scorpio, and she's really strong, so she's kind of really thinking about all of this with regards to relationships, and with these other aspects going on, it's kind of like, okay, so what am I getting out of this relationship that I'm in? And Mercury too is part of this, and this comes to our communication with other people. And with the aspect from Mars, things are heating up. Mars and Sun are really hot, and Mars especially with the aspect to Scorpio, think of like a boiling pot of water. He is in a water sign, and water is starting to boil. So at the first part of this cycle, and we do have Anuradha, which is very much concerned with selfless, unconditional love. This is where Scorpio gets its reputation for being a highly devotional sign. It's Anuradha where we devote ourselves, and it's out of pure love, without expectation. But I think what this cycle is really bringing to us is it's showing us where we aren't doing that, where we have these expectations. And sorry, I keep pausing to clear my throat. I'm not sick, it's just that in the mornings I tend to have phlegm in my throat, and I'm still waiting for my hot tea to clear that. So people might be feeling really irritated right now at people that they're in relationships with, not necessarily romantic, but people who you have a type of relationship where you expect things from each other. You have an agreement in place. So boundaries, you might be feeling like your boundaries have been violated, that you have been putting in your fair share only to get nothing from it. Those might be issues that are coming up. And the aspect from Mars onto Scorpio is really making people kind of think like, what am I getting out of this? How am I benefiting from this? How am I being disrespected? And the sun, especially being gassed up by Jupiter and Mars, is really thinking like, I deserve better. I deserve better than this. And that's all part of the purging process. There's a few different ways that this can go when we're talking about transits like this. And either, obviously if you're in a situation where you're being abused, or this person has consistently not shown up for you or has consistently violated your boundaries, you might want to consider whether or not this relationship needs to be in your life. Not everyone needs to take a transit like this and break up with their partner, or cut ties with someone and cut them off. That's usually a reactive response when you're feeling hurt and you just want to like put distance between you and the thing that's hurting you. The other option is to really use this as an opportunity to come together. And I haven't really even gotten to the chance of talking about the moon's presence here. The moon is coming into a new moon, so really she's going to be combust with these guys. And the moon is in a weak position here because the moon is debilitated in Scorpio. And the reason for that is because, again, these depths of these emotions, and the Scorpio is a fixed water sign, so it's like the emotions, this is like the sign of where grudges can really be built. And that tends to be the stereotype for Scorpio, is that there's like jealousy and grudge work and all that. But also, we have this other element of devotion where you're really devoted to another person, so it can be good as well. But for the moon, that kind of tends to be overwhelming. That sheer volume of emotion is really overwhelming for the moon. And so the moon is debilitated in Scorpio, and the moon is being combusted by the sun. This is a new moon, it's a dark moon, so that's when the moon's power is at its weakest. That's when we tend to feel even more vulnerable towards our baser instincts, our reactivity, our vulnerabilities. We can feel very vulnerable during new moons because that is when the moon is darkest and we have less access to our feelings of security and comfort. The moon represents security. That's where we feel safety. And when we feel safe, we feel free to feel our emotions and to engage with family and to just let our guard down. And that's really what the moon is all about. And we're not really there with this new moon. Some people could honestly be feeling like they're going through a dark night of the soul right now. But it's not, all doom and gloom. Towards the end of this lunar cycle, the moon is going to come into Rohini, and the moon will be in exact conjunction with Mars. It's actually pretty remarkable. They're going to be within the same degree and even within just a few minutes of each other. That's really freaking close, guys, in the sky. About as exact of a conjunction as you can get. And Mercury and Venus will have left Scorpio by that time, so this combustion is going to be released. And Rohini, which is really all about passion, creativity, fertility, as it says on this card, but also Rohini is the favored wife of the moon. The 28 nakshatras represent the 28 wives of the moon, Chandra, and this is his beloved, most favored wife. So the moon becomes exalted in Rohini, and there's going to be, it's going to end well, basically, is what I want to tell you guys. Is right now is a purging period, and after the purge, people might be feeling more inspired to reconnect with someone or reconcile, or they might just blossom into a very creative period of their life. Whether that's a fleeting period or whatever really comes down to minute details of your individual chart. But there's going to be healing towards the end of this cycle. So what can you do during this time? Emotions are really heating up. Our themes in Scorpio are reaching a boiling point. How do you help mitigate the heat of this transit? There's a lot of heat going on from the sun and Mars. Some ways to burn off heat is to exercise. Exercise is really great for working off excessive Mars energy. If you feel like your temper is really just out of control or you are harboring a lot of resentment, try exercising, try exerting yourself, physically working. Other things is that when you feel yourself really fixated on yourself and where you're being victimized by others, it can be really helpful to turn to service, like volunteer work. Bring yourself in contact with other people's suffering and try and help them. If you can be of service to others, that is a really wonderful healing balm for depression and resentment. And particularly with Mars and the sun in play, we want to find a cause that we can really believe in, particularly with this Jupiter aspect as well. We need something to feel idealistic about, and we need to be able to see the optimism in the situation. So finding a cause to devote yourself to, that cause could be, redevoting yourself to your partner. One thing that I wanted to touch on is like Scorpio really is about transformation, and And part of this is that I'm speaking from some of my own experience right now, is that I've been feeling some of these themes that have been coming up, that I'm talking about. And it's really easy to get caught up in your idealism of what you think your partner should be like, and to get so upset that they aren't that. And when you're doing that, you kind of aren't seeing them as a person anymore. You're seeing them as kind of an object to fulfill your desires. And one way that you can draw upon Scorpio's power for transformation is to reimagine your spouse. Try and make your spouse, or partner, or whoever you're mad at, that, and I'm talking specifically about people who are in your life that you're just really like irrationally upset at. They aren't someone who's abusive towards you. They are someone who you are very committed to, that you have a lot of kindness and love between each other, but you're just kind of being sidetracked by this stuff. I'm speaking about those type of situations right now. If you're in that kind of situation and you're feeling really stuck in the mud or in the gutter around just being like, meh, we need to transform our person into someone that we can feel compassion towards. So try and see the vulnerabilities in them. Try and forgive them and release your resentment. I know that's easier said than done. There's a number of ways to do this. Sometimes if it's just something that's really small, you just say to yourself, you know what, I'm letting this person off the hook. I'm renouncing the urge to like control and really make them pay up for what they've done to me, which might be something like, oh, they forgot to do the dishes a few days ago, and you're just like really burnt up about it. Totally not me having done that a few days ago, but just letting yourself release that, and it feels different. Forgiveness is something I've always struggled with, and it kind of just, something that helps me is being like, oh, I'm letting this person off the hook. I'm deciding that I don't need to follow up with this person and make sure that they pay for this, or that we settle up on this. So it's kind of just releasing the need to settle up with someone. That's really all forgiveness is. And it's so that you don't have to be bothered with it. You don't have to make it your mission to settle up with this person. So it's in service of yourself as well. So you don't have to hold on to this resentment and anger. So that's one way to forgive them. With other things, you might need to actually talk with them about it. And I really recommend that if you're going to have to do this, then trying to approach it as like you're both on the same team, and being like approaching them for like assistance in resolving this, not to belittle them and to just let off steam on this person and really make them feel small for how you feel. Just being like, hey, I wanted to talk to you about something, and I'm really hoping that we can grow closer through this, but I really value our relationship, and I just wanted to let you know that I'm struggling with feeling resentful about some things that have happened in our relationship in the past or recently, and can I just talk to you about this? And just saying like, just stick it to what you feel. Like, I feel really upset, I feel really alone or ignored or dismissed or something like that because this thing that happened. And if it's something that's like a recurring habit, maybe this is the time where you can really sit together and be like, what are some strategies that we can both come up with to mitigate this pattern that comes up? Like, how can we resolve this so that I don't have to feel resentful all the time? And when you approach a problem that way in a relationship, you're really tapping into the themes of Anuradha here, which is that selfless, unconditional love. And you're seeing that this person is not a threat to you, that there's someone that you are in partnership with and that you love very dearly, and that they are here to love you back. But again, it's hard I think my stomach just rumbled. I know it's hard when the moon is dark like this to necessarily do that, so maybe wait a few days after the new moon so that the moon starts moving out of Scorpio and gains some strength. During the actual days of the new moon, so like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, maybe even into Friday, it might be a good idea to withdraw from a relationship or conflict, or just table something for a short period of time and really spend some time alone. The new moon is always really good for meditation and going inward to really get in touch with yourself, especially with the moon being in Scorpio. This is a time where you can really get to the core root of some of your insecurities and vulnerabilities and really try and heal that. And then it's, as we're coming into the full moon, that's when you'll be able to uncover or find a creative solution to healing that, or discover what needs to happen to heal that. And Mars will be able to give that oomph and action-oriented clarity to the moon, and being able to strategize. Mars is a great tactician. He's exceptionally intelligent and tactical. Mars kind of goes in a number of ways. Like when we're all agitated like this, Mars really wants what it wants and can become very tactical and forceful about that when we have the Sun and the Mars interacting like this. But with the moon, that softens that, and our mind becomes very strategic and is able to think about, and especially when this combustion gets released, we're going to be able to just think more clearly about our relationships, and we'll have purged a lot of these ucky feelings that are coming up right now, and we can reapproach our relationships with a clear mind and clear idea of what we need to do. And so moving on from there, I think that gives a pretty good summary of this lunar cycle. I did pull some cards, and we're going to get into those real quick. So these are the tarot cards. We have the King of Wands, and then we have the Eight of Swords, and then we have the Nine of Cups. So these two had came out face up when I was shuffling, but I had not seen the Eight of Swords previously. So give me a moment to look at this. I see the snake here. The snake is very much associated with Scorpio, the transformation. And I see the crow here as kind of like a little messenger. Crows can also, I feel like crows get associated with Scorpio as well, but why? I don't remember. It might be because of Jayastha, another nakshatra. But also there is a deity, I believe, within Scorpio that rules one of the nakshatras, whose vehicle is a crow. But I don't remember that off the top of my head. But I see the King of Wands here as, for a collective reading, like people might be feeling really powerful, and they might be feeling really like all eyes are on them. I see all these eyes, and some of that could be ego. That could be like, you know, everyone look at me, I have all these needs, I have all this power, and it can just be a little arrogant at times. But I think the crow here is, and the snake is kind of giving some information to the lion here about being moderate in exerting your power over others. And the Eight of Swords here is kind of shedding light on how you trap yourself mentally into a story that begets resentment. So these are about the stories that you tell yourself, the thoughts that you have, and it's kind of like they're circling around you, circling around this moon and coming for your peace, basically. And it can feel like a hole that you're just sinking down into that you can't get out of. But you can. That's the whole point of the Eight of Swords, is that it's when something is just a matter of your mindset, and that isn't to say that like it's easy, but it's something that you have control over. And there are very few things in this world that we have direct control over, but we have control over our mindset. And it takes incredible dedication and practice, and that, you know, devotion, Saturn, these devotion from Anuradha, and Saturn can really, this strong Saturn can really help us dedicate ourselves to changing our mindset, or really help you dedicate yourself to changing whatever thing that you want to dedicate yourself to. But I think if we learn how to release ourselves from our mental stories and our way of thinking and perceiving things that gets us feeling hurt, and we release that, then we are going to be able to blossom out into this Nine of Cups and really access fulfilling happiness. And I think it's fascinating that we had the peacock here, and we know that Rohini is going to be the climax of this lunar cycle. Peacocks are often associated with fertility and abundance. And we see the moon shift here. From here, it's like blue. It's kind of cold and lifeless. But here, she's risen and she's gold and she's shining her light. And we have this gold snake as well. So I think that's kind of, we're being asked to look inwards and see how we can transform ourselves rather than trying to change the people around us. And that's how we show true devotion to others. Now we have some self-care cards. These are some things that you can do. You don't have to do all of them, but there's some options if some of the other suggestions I made earlier aren't really vibing with you. Here's some ideas for how to deal with this lunar cycle and to manage your energies through this cycle. We have connect with the earth, and of course grounding is always recommended. Yeah, when all this stuff is getting agitated and shaken up, it can be really helpful to just find some space for solitude to really rebalance and reconnect with your inner stability and inner groundedness, so that you don't do something you regret. I have a tendency to be impulsive, and I think the King of Wands can be kind of impulsive as well. When you're feeling anger or you're feeling like you've been disrespected and you feel like you have to do something about it right at that moment, and to take care of it and be like, you know what, this can't go unpunished or, you know, unaddressed. When we have these planetary energies going on, it's really helpful to pump the brakes on that, basically. And connecting with the earth can be really helpful for, you know, just taking a walk out in nature, or even just a walk around your neighborhood, and just having some peaceful, intentional solitude to really connect with yourself. And then next we have connect with your womb. So if you are not in possession of a womb, you can use this to connect with your creative and generative energies and drives. Using this time to, we talked about fertility with Rohini. This is a really great time to get creative and to really connect with what you're passionate about and again, we talked about a cause that you can devote yourself to. Creativity doesn't need to just be artwork. It doesn't need to be like creating music or something like Venusian. It can be about creating solutions to problems that you see out in your community that you want to devote yourself to resolving. And then we have health checkup. So I did want to say that if you do have a uterus and maybe you've been noticing some issues, I think a health checkup is a good idea. Scorpio is a sign that can relate to disease of the genitals. So this is if you struggle with like polycystic ovarian syndrome or even like erectile dysfunction or any kind of issues with sex drive or reproductive organs, this can be a good time to go see your doctor because these transits could flare that up. And even if you don't have something diagnosed, I personally just recently went through being diagnosed with a chronic health issue that wasn't coming up in tests. And I had to do some research and specifically ask for very specific tests for antibodies. Basically, I discovered I have an autoimmune disorder, but it hasn't impacted any of my functioning. So my tests kept coming back normal. Or it might just be time to do a health checkup. Maybe you've neglected it for a while, and doing this can really help alleviate some of your anxiety and give you some answers. And also just taking care of your health in general. Really focus on what it is that your body needs from you right now. Maybe some of you are pregnant and it can be, you might be experiencing some challenges or frustrations related to that, and maybe there's some resources that your healthcare provider can offer you, whether that's like a Western doctor or an alternative care practitioner. Maybe they can offer you some help with alleviating some of your struggles that you're going through. And I want to end this with an affirmation. So let's see. Oops, sorry about that. One affirmation, please. For the collective. Oops, here we go. I am safe and secure in my world. I choose to believe that everyone is always helpful. Therefore, wherever I go in life, people are there to help me. I think that's an excellent affirmation to wrap up this reading. When we have this new moon in Scorpio, again, just to recap, we can often feel very insecure. We can feel very unsafe and very vulnerable. And just reminding yourself that the people in your life have good intentions towards you can be really helpful in alleviating some of that, because when you're feeling vulnerable, everybody seems like a threat. You see threats everywhere. But if you take accountability for creating the safety in your life, which I could probably write an article about that, what it means to be responsible for creating your own safety is having the faith in yourself, knowing that you are capable of setting the boundaries that you need with people, that you are capable of recognizing when a situation is unsafe for you, and that you have the power to take yourself out of unsafe situations. And when you really tap into that, then it's a lot easier, well, maybe not easier, but it facilitates being able to really connect with people and build intimacy with others, because you don't rely on them to keep you safe. You rely on yourself to respond to the cues that you receive in your environment appropriately to keep yourself safe. And when you really feel that on a deep level, you don't feel so insecure with others. And again, I think this is also saying that anyone that you might be struggling with during this time, there's a really good chance that they're willing to help you with that struggle. and that you don't need to approach them as an enemy. You can approach them as someone who's there to help you, even if that person is kind of the source of your problem. Just have faith that they want something good to come out of your relationship to that person, that they don't want you to feel unsafe or insecure or resentful. And that is all I've got for this new moon cycle. Please let me know what you think of this forecast, and I really appreciate you being on my channel and watching my videos. And stay safe and healthy, and just kind of hang in there during this time. Know that this combustion is temporary. It's going to release within a couple weeks, and things are going to shift. Right now we're just purging. So it's a great opportunity for healing when we're purging. And so I wish you all the best health and happiness in your lives. See you next time. Bye-bye.